Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Let's do this.
Legal discussion on Tip Today is brought to you in association with Lynch Solicitors Clonmel, on the web at lynchsolicitors.ie and at divorceinIreland.com.
John Lynch is with me in studio. Morning, John.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you.
Many happy returns to you. Had you a nice Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. As they say, I got over the Christmas.
I got over it. Like it was an obstacle or something like that. That's great.
But I always think it's always funny to see people queuing up, you know, to buy whatever it is they're buying in the supermarkets, and like you'd think the world was ending or something, you know. And then are the people, you know, queuing up with loads of drink coming out, and then the following day they're into the pub.
Into the pub, yeah. No, yeah. Does that not come from years ago though, when the shops did close for a week or so? Anyway, there you go. New Year's resolutions, John. But
I was trying to think of how many
ones.
years have I been doing New Year's resolutions, but a fairly long time.
We normally don't finish them until about March.
No, we normally don't finish them. Yeah. Well, sure, you know yourself, they're full year resolutions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the standard ones, and the one that always is top of the list, is future planning. And when I say future planning, we never know what's going to happen. And, you know, one of the saddest things I find around Christmas or before Christmas, my father used to say it, you know, when the leaves are falling, people move on, pass on, and the amount of people that still don't anticipate the most obvious thing and the most predictable thing in your life is that it is going to end at some stage. And I mean, there's two elements to it. Yes, it could end, but there along the way, heading towards the exit, there can be an awful lot of complications. And, you know, we've talked about it over and repeatedly over the years. You know, if you don't plan it, it's certainly never going to happen the way you might like it to happen. So the starting point is that set of future planning that you do, which is and it's probably not your starting point, as in the will, I think, is the last one. I think you work back and you start with, well, okay, I know I'm going to go at some stage, but what happens if towards the end or at any point I'm not able to look after myself? What do I do and what can I do about that? And the answer to that is that thankfully over the last number of years they've added a number of tools that are available to people. And the first one that they introduced in 1996 and amended again in 2015 was the enduring power of attorney. And the enduring power of attorney effectively is a pre-plan in case you can't look after yourself and you need somebody else to do it for you. You need them to make decisions for you. And the question, of course, is they could be decisions about your health, about where you live. They could be decisions about your money. They could be decisions about looking after a business that you might be involved in. They could be anything. It depends. Yes. Obviously, each circumstance is different. And the enduring power of attorney is a document or a mechanism whereby in advance of that happening, you think it out and say, well, okay, who would I like to look after me in terms of, you know, where do I live? You know, what are my day-to-day care requirements? Who would know about that? And who would I like to go and look after and do that for me? So you name them in advance, and they're your attorneys effectively. So they do that, and then you think and you say, well, okay, who do I want to look after my money and look after my pension if it's coming in, or look after whatever? Who do I want to do that? And you nominate them, and then when you
John, do you discuss with them?
Yeah.
Do you make sure that they're up for this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's an absolute key requirement. I think it can cause all sorts of difficulties. The same as anything that you do, Fran. Whether you're doing a will, you're doing a cohabitation agreement, whether you're doing a contract, whether you're doing a business contract, whether you're doing a personal contract, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It obviously pays to to have that discussion, well, with yourself, with your advisors, and with the people that you're going to ask to do it for you. Because many a time somebody gets appointed as an attorney and or as an executor or as a trustee who kind of goes, what the hell is going on? What am I supposed to do here? And and it's an owner's duty, you see. It's not an easy one sometimes.
Yes.
And just to follow up on that, the mechanism now that's out there, because of circumstances that can arise where there can be undue influence, worst case scenario, elder abuse. In that scenario, you now have an oversight mechanism now that's there in the Decision Support Service, which is a body that was set up under the 2015 Act, which is the Assisted Decision Making Act. But this body now is an overseeing body. It used to be the court, and by the way, the court is still there. The court is your last recourse, effectively. But the Decision Support Service now takes a very inquisitional role in terms of ensuring that people carry out these duties. So your question is absolutely spot on. You should have the discussion with somebody, because not only should they know what the job is, but they should also be very well aware of what your preferences are, what you want to happen. And you can't expect people to read your mind. And even if they could read your mind, the difficulty that I often see is that when you don't have a detailed discussion about it, you can actually misunderstand as the person who's going to be appointed or as the person who's appointing. You can actually have a lack of understanding between the two parties.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this is what you wanted, or I thought whatever. So yes, absolutely right that you should do that. But an aside to that is that the whole process of an enduring power of attorney has been changed, and certainly in our case in Lynch Solicitors, not a lot of firms are doing it at the moment, but we've kind of come up with a workaround that will, in other words, there's no reason why people can't actually do it at this point in time. There might be a lot of questions about how difficult it is to do it online, but I think there are workarounds to it. And
should you do it at the same time as you're making a will, or?
I think it's all part of the same process,
yes.
Fran.
Yeah.
Because the other thing to remember as well is that you're doing it at this point in time, but a little bit like everything else, things change.
Yeah.
And you've got to, funny, this is the start of the year, and at the start of every year we have a closed week. We close for the week in January, because what we do is we take an opportunity to review things, to look at our systems. And one of the things that we do review is our wills. And you'd be amazed that even though you might do it every year, you'd be amazed that each year when you do it, suddenly, so-and-so hasn't been in to review the will, or you check and find that in fact they've died in the meantime or whatever. And it absolutely emphasises the fact that if you have a will sitting there for 20 years, it could be out of date. In fact, 9 times out of 10 it is out of date, because an awful lot of people come in, at different things trigger making wills. People often make wills when they buy property. They often make wills when they marry. In fact, you have to make a new will when you marry, unless you make a will in anticipation of your marriage. The marriage nullifies it, so you've got to redo the will after. You should always.
It nullifies it completely, does it?
Yeah,
What?
unless it's done in anticipation of marriage.
That's very interesting. I didn't realise that.
Yeah. But you buy a house, you have children, and people will often, when they have children, they will change their will again. But then forget that often those wills are designed to look after the children by appointing guardians or trustees, or allowing them to have assets at a certain stage of their life. But in the intervening period, however many years later, and by God do those years go fast, suddenly all those children are grown up. So there's no point in a trust. So the will needs to be updated. And you can have all sorts of... Look, there is no family that won't have a change of circumstances. And, you really, like, I would always say to everybody, New Year's resolution, and, you were slagging me about how long we can be talking about it, but at any point in time, whatever about, if there's a life event or not, it's always a good idea to say, how up to date is my will? How up to date has anything changed, and should I go and change it? And the answer is yes, you should.
But you and I have been speaking for I don't know how many years at this point. It was only last year, 2025, I finally got around to it, and I kept putting it off. And I often question myself as to why I was putting it off. And what is it about confronting mortality or something? I don't know. Is it just laziness?
Funny, I asked myself the question. I often have these. I was going to say, I was thinking of the movie Road to Perdition, and I don't know why that came into my mind, but I was thinking of the Road to Damascus. You remember your man came off the horse, or whatever it was, whatever he was
Paul,
on.
Was it? Yeah.
It was Paul, yeah. But I often have these moments of thought when I'm on the bike, when I'm cycling along, and thought drift into your head. And I was just trying to think about, why is it when we get older do we think that time moves faster? Because obviously time doesn't move. It's an abstract thing, time. We created time in order to make some sort of sense of the world. And I was trying to work it out. And I was thinking that, the problem is that if you fill your time to such an extent that you have so many things in it, it goes really, really fast because you're constantly moving. But if you actually live in the moment that you're in, like I'm now doing a radio show, you're now hopefully listening to me. If you live in that moment as opposed to trying to move into the next one, you might slow it down. So that's my theory for the new year. But on the will one, I remember thinking I was thinking, it's the same idea that as you go at a younger age, as you get older, a lot of older people make wills because they realise their mortality. Yes. Whereas when you're young, you think, wow, sure, there's an expanse of time in front of me. Yeah. So I think it's more to do with that than a reluctance to do it. Yeah. Because I often find with younger people, whatever that means, if you say, will you do a will, never a problem. They do it straight away. If somebody comes into us and they're doing a house sale or doing a house purchase or whatever, they'll always come in and do it. And the other one is when they're going on planes. I often thought if I had a stand at Dublin Airport,
you would do extremely well.
I could do a great job.
If I'm coming into John Lynch and his team and I want to look at a will and maybe enduring power of attorney as well, the homework that I must do then, John, is what? What do I need to present with myself to you?
Well, first of all, and I'm not going to answer this question if you ask me how much is it going to cost, because the fact of the matter is that you've probably hit another kind of discussion point. In order to make a will is a process. It's a thinking process. People think you can come in, do the will, walk out the door, and that's it. And it takes 3, 4, 5 consultations with Lynch Solicitors team to get to the point where everybody's satisfied, i.e. from a legal point of view you're happy, you've covered all the bases. From the client point of view, they've covered all the bases. Don't expect it to be a fast, quick exercise. It's not. Yeah. It's a kind of a thought out process where you come in, well, can I do this? Could I do that? What if I do this? And many is a time over the years, you're going through this process and the client will say, well, what do you think, John? What do you think I should do here? And that's indicative of a cooperative approach between you and the client, that the client, their circumstances, but you have to know their circumstances in order to advise them. And it's not so much that you're telling them what to do, you're offering an opinion based on shared information. And the key here is you think, but to start the process, you have to understand the process. To understand the process, you have to talk about it. To talk about it, you understand. And when you understand it, you've got to talk to other people about it. And back to your very critical point, discussion. Do you talk to your family about it? Do you talk to your children about it? Do you talk to the people you're going to appoint as executors about it? Do you talk to your accountant about it? Do you talk to your solicitor about it? Yes. To all of the above. So don't think a bit like the gym, you know. It doesn't work for the first 2 or 3 goes. You have to go for a while.
And that's what we discovered.
Yeah.
Now, a bit like everything else in my life, I'm a pain in the ass. So I was kind of over-prepared. I didn't realise that you didn't need, insurance numbers and account numbers.
You
and
do.
When you're actually making the will itself.
Well, you do insofar as if you have all that information. So let's stay with that just for a second. The more information you have, the better. Now, and I don't mean with a view... From my point of view, if I'm looking at your scenario, you see, making the will isn't just the will. There's the enduring power of attorney and there's the succession planning. There's the tax. There's what's the optimum way to do it. Now, for me to have a look at that, I got to understand all that. I got to have that information. So if you were saying I've got to... Now, the number on your pension obviously isn't what's critical. It's what the pension is.
Yes.
And what type of pension it is and how the payment out works. Do you know what I mean? So
right. Sorry, I was just talking about a basic will, not an enduring power of attorney.
Yeah, but you see, no, but that applies in a will as well. You see, I don't think, when you talk about, I'm going to slag you now when you say basic will, because you see, basic will to me doesn't mean a huge amount.
Right.
Because what you're saying is, I leave everything to my wife and then I leave everything with my kids. Sure, that's basic. Well, sure, anybody can do that. Of course they can. But that's not the process. In order to understand, is that the right thing to do? Are there any special needs requirements? Are there tax implications? Should you be transferring it now? Should you be transferring it in your will? Or what? That's succession planning. Making a will is only one part of succession planning. It makes up literally the will is the final document. The process is what you go through in order to get there. And in order to get there, you got to understand. So if somebody comes in, they've got special needs, either children or special needs per se, so there's all of those, none of which you're able to say anything about until you get the information. So I think you need never be worried about having too much information.
Too much, yeah.
Because even take it that something happens to you. The ideal scenario is somebody is able to go into your solicitor and you have every piece of information that's required in order to do the administration of your estate. And the more information you give,
the better. The
easier it is for them to find it, number one, because the amount of times, and it brings me in mind of my earliest days when a widow came in to me and said that the husband suffered from dementia or something, but he used to wander off and he had this fixation in his head that everybody was trying to take his money, including the tax man, which of course is a fixation we all have. but not to be too flippant about the poor man, but he used to get in the bus and disappear. She never knew where he went.
Almighty.
And he'd bring cash that he had hidden in a safe in the house, and she couldn't manage him. But he went all over the place, lodging money in different accounts, in different building societies, banks, whatever. The only way she could track it is that sometimes she found the deposit slips. So we had to write to all of the institutions, asking them about whether they held, and she was able to kind of guess that he might have gone to Cork, he might have gone to Limerick, and he went to Dublin, for example. And to give you an example, she says he definitely went to Dublin. I remember he went to Dublin, and don't ask me, I can't remember why. And she had pinpointed where she thought he went to. Anyway, we wrote and they said they had nothing. Now, we found out later because we got a slip that in fact it was lodged there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, straight answer is no. You absolutely, same way as, this is you, none of us are perfect, but certainly having the information available to you. But as I said to you, the will is only part of the process. It's the result document from the process of making the will. The enduring power of attorney, same process is involved in that. And the other one that, as I was saying to you last year, that has come into the mix is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And the Advanced Healthcare Directive is a very specific directed document that deals with your wishes in the event of end of life or otherwise, where you have very specific instructions as to what you want to happen. And again, that brings me in mind of a client of mine who was making a will, who knew they were going to, the end was nigh. They were told they only had months to live or whatever. And I mean, in that particular instance, they were very specific about what treatment options they did and what treatment options they didn't want. So they were able at that point in time to do an Advanced Healthcare Directive that was a document, and they also were able to appoint somebody who would be their care representative, who was specifically mandated to ensure that if they got hospitalised, this is what was going to happen, this was what was not going to happen, and they were very specific about it.
Do you find as well, John, that there's a peace of mind that people have when they have all of this done? Because it's always at the back of your mind when you don't have it.
Yeah, but you're always worried. Like, you're always concerned, the what if scenario.
Sure.
And maybe, just maybe, going back to your question as to why people are reluctant, maybe people might be reluctant to do it, because to a certain extent, they're afraid to deal with it or to acknowledge, the fact that these are the realities of life,
Yeah, and as well as that, as you say, when you have to have discussion with family as well, maybe that's another reason why people...
Well, and the interesting thing about that, as an aside to that, is that under the enduring power of attorney mechanism that they have now, through the DSS, you have to notify family. And I've had people coming into me going, I've had a falling out with so-and-so. I do not want them to know my personal affairs on my... And I've been asked, well, how do you deal with that? Well, I said the way you deal with it is you sidestep it. You don't do an enduring power of attorney in the straight way. You do an affidavit that sets out what your instructions are, and if it arises, then I'm in a position to make an application to the court and set up your wishes, and then it's made by court order rather than by document. Because, you see, there are 3 levels to assistance that you may require, and it kind of scales up. The lower level is somebody to help you make decisions. In other words, somebody that works with you. They don't actually make the decisions for you, but they help you to make them. Then the next step up is somebody who makes decisions with you, which is they're a co-decision maker, so they're part of the decision-making process. And then you step up from there and you've got a court-appointed person, a representative. So they're the 3 steps. And the attorney, appointing an attorney, is a document that creates the appointment of somebody who does that, as in does what the court would do. So there's always the option, if you don't have to reassure people, if because of, hopefully they'll make the system a little bit easier. And I better be careful what I say about that. But the reality of it is that, people say to me, what happens if I don't have it? What can I do? Well, the answer is, if you set out your instructions, you do an affidavit, you do a legal document that swears what you want, who you want appointed, what you want appointed to do, then it's a question of an application to the Circuit Court to appoint somebody who you've already nominated.
All right, okay, so give yourself that as a task, I guess, this year. That's
absolutely.
the advice. All right.
If I haven't put people off.
Not the least. John, a pleasure as always. Thanks very much indeed. John Lynch of Lynch Solicitors in Clonmel. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.